Hey guys, welcome back to the Falcon Project on Calico's Garage and episode number 13. And in this episode, we're going to be doing mini tubs on the Falcon. So we've got a lot of cutting and grinding and all kinds of fun stuff to do. We're going to be cutting along here on both sides and then around here, taking this whole side off and then spacing it out probably to here. I think that's probably where the frame rail's kind of right in here. We're going to cut out this amount so that this moves over probably 1.5 to 2 inches. Give us that much extra space to fit a bigger tire. Really, that's the only reason to do it. But yeah, a lot of work to do. So let's get started. Hey guys, all right, after some investigation, I've determined how to cut these out. There's some braces in the inside, as you can see on this side and this side. And there's a bunch of spot welds that are holding them in at the top and bottom. So I went ahead and drilled them out on this side and had to grind these. So now this is separate and it's still attached to the tub, but when I cut it, the tub and the brace will be able to move in, and then I can just re-tack it on the top and bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and drill these out. Nothing real exciting, it's just a lot of busy work and repetition. So give me a second and I will get that taken care of, and then we can move on to the next step. All right, that took way longer than it needed to, but I've got all the spot welds drilled out and grinded down. So now both sides are free, and I think the next part I'm going to do is to trim these. Just trim them right across there, and then that will be the only thing other than, obviously the connection to the floor pan itself, but those will be the only kind of external bracing pieces that are connecting the tubs to the car. Once those are cut, then I can trim out the tub itself, which I'm hoping shouldn't be too hard, but if those spot welds are any indication of how this is going to go. So let me get these braces cut. I'll be right back. That is one tub out. All right, lots of space now. So the next step is, let me bring you around under here. So there's this lip here, which is where the floor pan attaches to the subframe. So rather than cutting this off, I'm going to cut it in a couple places and then fold it over so that it's flush with this. That way it'll still be attached to the floor pan and it will give me a nice place to weld to. And then this here, I'm going to have to drill through the spot welds and chisel that off so that that's gone. But yeah, so that will be the next step. And once again, I want to give a lot of thanks to Sleeper Dude for the video that he did on mini tubbing his Falcon Futura. I pretty much doing exactly what he did, and so far it's been identical, even though they're kind of different years and different models. But yeah, so thanks, Sleeper Dude. All right, let me get to this. A little bit more cutting and the other wheel tub is out. So we've got all kinds of space now to work and figure out the spacing. Actually wasn't too bad. Some of the metal's pretty rusted though, so it just kind of disintegrated as I was cutting it, but that's okay because it's going to get replaced with new metal. So we've got both tubs here now. Just have to do some trimming to get rid of this. I think there are spot welds around here, so I'll probably end up drilling those out and getting it ready. Once those are drilled out and I'm able to get this piece that kind of goes around here and here, get that taken off, and then I'll be able to fit the tubs back in, get them situated where they're going to end up, and I'll probably put some self-tappers in there to hold them in place, get them tacked in. Then I can make the center section. I had to order some sheet metal because the length of this is pretty long and I didn't have anything that long, so I might be able to pick that up Monday, I believe. And then I also got some aluminum to seal in this back section. Once the wheel tubs and everything are in, that'll kind of be like one of the last steps. Yeah, I got a pretty good sized piece of aluminum, so I've got some options as far as how to get that situated, but like I said, that'll kind of be like one of the last steps. Once I get the inside Raptor lined, then I will be able to put that in and probably just rivet that, since it's not going to come in or out or anything. And if it does, I can just drill through the rivets to take it out. So, all right, let me get to the next step of drilling out these spot welds, and we'll go from there. All right, so since we're kind of in a holding pattern regarding the wheel mini tubs, waiting on the metal to kind of seal the gap between the two halves, I kind of squirreled a bit and decided to try putting the engine and transmission in to make sure that fits, and it doesn't. So let me show you the problem. That's a big old Turbo 400, and the transmission that was in the car was this little dinky thing. So compare and contrast. Big boy, little boy. So I'm going to have to do some trimming and fitting to get the transmission to fit into the tunnel. Speaking of transmission, it is a Vickers Turbo 400 built by Dion, and it is a thing of beauty. It's going to support, I think he said it would go up to about 1100 horsepower or so. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere near that, so it is kind of overkill, but I figure go big or go home, right? I did have to drill and tap this hole in the block, but after doing that, I don't know if you can really see in there, but the hole is actually up a little bit higher. So apparently my drill bit kind of drifted a little as I was drilling. Not that big of a deal, because I can just make this hole a little bit bigger and that'll fit in there just fine. But it does have a bunch of other bolts, and I have picked it up as it is now, and it's totally fine. So even if I don't put that bolt in, it'll still be okay. But I would like to have every possible bolt in there. So what we're going to do is I have to take the engine off the transmission so that I can make a template for the size that I'm going to need to trim. Then we're going to have to come in here and cut around there to make it bigger, and I'm probably going to cut the top of the tunnel a little bit just so that I've got some extra room, and I can always fill that back in, or I mean, I have to fill it back in. But what I'm thinking is that I'm going to make a removable kind of trans tunnel so that taking it in and out will be a whole lot easier, because I hate to say it, but with race cars, you're going to be taking the engine and trans out quite a bit. So to make things easier, I think I will do it that way. And then I'm also debating on this. I was able to get it in there before, but I have to get it at really a big steep angle to get it over this, but then drop down into there. So I'm trying to think of a way to get rid of this, maybe cut it here and here, like all the way up and across. That way it can come in and out. I'm just not sure how to reattach it. So I've got some figuring to do, but in the meantime I can get the transmission separated from the engine so that I can make that template for the size hole that I need. So I think I'll do that now, and while I'm doing that I can figure out what I'm going to do for that front piece. So let's do that. Okay, got the engine separated from the transmission and made the template for cutting out the tunnel, or at least getting a rough shape to start with. And then while I was at it, I also went ahead and torqued on the flex plate and the torque converter adapter, because, you know, why not? So now I'm gonna go ahead and take my template and cut out some more of the car. Okay, that's what we've come up with for what we need to trim out, which is quite a bit. Should be okay though. I mean, we can always put metal back, right? Right? All right, let's get to cutting. After some measuring, this is what it looks like we're going to have to cut out. I already got the front cut, so I'll just need to cut along the white line. And I did go a little bit shorter so that if I have to, I can take more off, but I'd rather not make it too big. So we'll start with this, see how it goes, and hopefully it slips right in. So let's see. Okay, so I'm going to have to cut the trans tunnel up a little higher. It's just a lot of trial and error, and so far it's been a lot of error, so let me do that. All right, I got the tunnel opening trimmed up probably another inch higher. So that should definitely give us enough room to shoehorn this big thing in there, hopefully. So, after somewhat of a battle trying to get this engine in here, I realized that I goofed. And when I put the engine mounts on, I put them on like this, but they need to go like this so that they're farther back, because I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get it lined up, because I was like 5 inches off and I was against the firewall, which I figured something was wrong. So I thought the easiest thing was to look at the mounts, and turns out I was right. So I'm going to flip those around, and then we should be able to get this engine stabbed in here. All right, let's go. All right, got lots of room now. That will make putting the engine and trans in so much easier. And then I can just put a little bracket to seal that up, weld a bar across there, and I'll probably have it set with screws. That way I can take it in and out. And that'll work out perfectly. Also, I cut this section out, which was where the old battery box used to sit, which obviously is all rusted out. And it's just taking up space that I don't really need. So I think for now I'll just leave it open, but eventually I might fill it in with a plate or something. I also got the motor mounts. I had to widen these holes like I was saying. The other thing is that the mounts in the actual K-member had these rubber bushings on them like this on both sides, and for some reason these plates that came with it were not wide enough to fit with that, so I had to trim this off on both sides, and then it fits fine. So just a little additional fabrication, but no big deal. So now that I've got these mounts where they need to be, I can put the engine in and then just set it down gently to line these holes up on both sides. And then I can get that mounted. Once the engine's mounted where it's going to be, that will determine where the transmission's going to end up, and then I can get the cross member for the transmission fabricated and mounted so that both the engine and trans are secure, or at least have the secure mounting locations. And then once that is done, I think the engine bay, as far as any type of fabrication work, obviously aside from the tunnel, but that's kind of going to be more on the inside of the car, but it should be done, and then I can start getting it prepared for prime and paint. All right, after a lot of intense negotiations, I accomplished something. Engine is mounted. Not permanently, of course, but the mounts are attached to the block, and I think I'm just going to leave those attached because it's a lot easier to just lower it in and slide a bolt through the mount on the engine, as opposed to trying to line the engine up and then put 8 bolts in. And as you can see, there is plenty of room all the way around. It's a good thing I trimmed these out. That obviously, would have been here. There's no way these would have fit. So yeah, we are looking good. I've got the transmission kind of being held up by a jack. I need to do a bit of research to figure out what the optimal angle is. I've got the rear end at a -4 degree, which, down 4 degrees. I believe that the transmission should also be down, but I'm not sure of the exact degree. So I need to figure that out. And then once I get that, I can fab up the mount that will attach probably from the frame rails going across, and then I've got an actual Turbo 400 mount that will attach to that. So yeah, making some really good progress today. Getting that engine in, that's a big one. I'm not going to mark it off on the board over there quite yet because it's not finally installed, and I want to wait till it's in and not coming back out before I do that. Well, let's see how the transmission's looking inside. So that's how the trans is sitting, and looking at it now, I definitely trimmed way more than I needed to, but that's okay because once it gets filled in, it's just going to be covered and it'll look like it did before. I don't think I'm going to have to modify the tunnel at all because the angle is probably going to be going down, so it'll get farther away from this as it goes back. So that should be fine. So yeah, we're looking good. I just couldn't help myself. Had to see what that intake would look like on there, and that is looking good. And I think, yep, it will fit below the roof line, or the hood line, I guess. So that is fantastic. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, sorry, had to do it. So after a bit of fabrication work, using my new drill press, I came up with this for my transmission cross member. It's going to weld up here and here to the frame rails, and then it will be removable. And then once I get it mounted up in there, then it's actually kind of back, so the tail shaft is about here for the transmission, and the mount probably sits like right about here above it. So once I get this mounted and welded in, then I can just get some plates, attach it to the mount, and kind of build it up to come up to the bar here, and then just tack it and then take it off and then weld it on solid. So it'll kind of have a bracket like here with the holes in it for the mount. And that should be pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and get to that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got the transmission cross member welded in. It's nice and solid. You can see that. So the next step is going to be connecting the mount here to the bar. And I'm thinking what I might end up doing is just get a piece of angle iron similar to what I used on the sides, so it'll come up and over, so it'll give me a nice surface to weld to here, and then I can just drill the holes here. I think that might work, so I'll have to do some measuring and make sure, but that's going to be my plan for now, and we'll see if that works. Alright, so that's the plate that should mount to the, well, it will mount to the trans. So now I'm going to tack it on. I'll probably mark, so I don't really need all this metal, so I'll probably cut it kind of at an angle. I'll just cut it from there and there to there and there. And then I'll get it tacked on and take the bar off, and then I can fully weld both sides of it. I'm not sure if I need any bracing under here. I'll see once I take it off if I need bracing or not. Probably not, but we'll see. All right, there we go. got that all welded up, looking nice. And now I'm gonna throw some primer on it and let it sit overnight to dry, and then tomorrow we're gonna paint it black like the Rolling Stones song, and then we're going to get it mounted. Then I can take the engine and transmission back out because I will have all the mounts and everything set up and ready to go. And then we can start cleaning the engine bay. And well, I've kind of strayed off track quite a bit. Started out doing the wheel tubs, mini tubs, and it's kind of been on hold waiting for the metal to fill in the space to become available. But I got it. It's right there. So I'm thinking that once I get this transmission mount cross member mabob painted or primed and painted, then we're going to switch back to working on the mini tubs so that I can get that done and marked off, and then we can move on to the next thing, which will probably be taking out the engine and transmission and getting the engine bay ready for paint. So that's the plan. Let's go ahead and do it. Okay, there we go. Now I just need to let that dry and get moving on to the next part. Alright, I've got one of the wheel tubs prepped. I had to use the spot weld drill, drill out all the spot welds that were holding these pieces on, which is on this one, it's this piece here. I still have to do this one. And then once I had all those drilled out, I just used the little air hammer, just chisels it right off. So I've got one more to do, and then we can get them fitted into the car and see how much of a gap we are going to be working with. Okay, both of those are done and all the unnecessary pieces are cut off. So now we can start fitting them into the trunk tub area. Well, actually no, I have to fold over the floor pan and frame pieces first. So let's do that. Alright, so you've got the lip folded over. That's nice and flat. And I've also got the other side done. So now we can fit up the tubs and put them in place temporarily with a self-tapper. And then we can start plug welding it in. So let me do that. All right, that was a struggle, but I was able to get this side screwed on. And as you can see, that is how much space we're gaining inside here by doing this. There's always going to be more at the front because the way the frame's shaped, it kind of kicks out. But yeah, we're gaining like at least a good 2.5, maybe even 3 inches, which equates to a wider tire, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get the other side screwed in, make sure everything's good, and then I will start tack welding it. So after getting everything spot welded on, the gap I noticed here this side kind of came over, so it was lower and it was really close. So I pried it apart with a pry bar, and then I put that little brace up here to keep it separated, like the Offspring song. And so now I can get the plate to fill the gap here, measured out, and cut to size, and then get it tacked in, and then the wheel tub should be done. I've got the filler strips cut out and ready to get the holes cut in them. I'm going to be using this tool right here. Makes it a whole lot easier. Just pops a hole in it real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and put a hole maybe every 3.5 inches, and then we'll start getting these fitted in. Okay, all the holes are punched out. Time to start fitting these in there. After a significant amount of fighting with this, I was able to get the filler strip screwed into place. Looking good. So the next step is to get the other side done, and then I can go ahead and spot weld both sides in and mini tubs are done. And I have to say, up until now, the roll cage was my least favorite part of this build process. I have a new winner. It's these mini tubs. It has been a fight every step of the way, and you got to do it, but whew, it sucks. So let me go ahead and get the other side screwed in, and we can get to welding. After quite a bit of spot welding and hammering and swearing and more hammering, we've got wheel tubs installed. Got both sides done. They're not the prettiest, but at this point, it's more about functionality than how they look. And I am extremely happy that it's done. So now we can probably fit at least a 9-inch wheel, maybe a 10 if I'm lucky, but I'm going to have to measure before I pull the trigger on that. But yeah, this is quite another big accomplishment, and we can mark that off. There we go, right there. Done. Just like that. And also just like that, we have reached the end of this episode. It's been a little bit longer than I was hoping. Mainly we were just waiting on the metal to get delivered, so that kind of put us behind schedule, but hopefully the next videos will come out a little bit quicker. I want to say that we're kind of over the hump and kind of on the downhill slope, but I don't want to jinx myself, so we have a hard struggle ahead of us. Anyway, if you like what you've seen, go ahead and hit that like button. If you really liked it, hit subscribe and click the bell for notifications of when I release the next video. And with that being said, I'm Chris. Thanks for watching the Falcon Project on Calico's Garage. See you next time.